Sandra, tell us why and how you started an animation studio from scratch back in the late 60s.
Well, we came to Australia in 1968. We decided that we will concentrate on animation, although Yoram was a producer and director in Europe of mainly live action films. Considering that we came here with Yoram experience in animation, we also arrived with a very unique piece of equipment, which was animation table, special lenses, can say the best of what at the time was offered, a German equipment it was. We then set ourselves up in a rented home. It was not a studio, and just out of sheer drive for survival, began to search for work. We had an example of Yoram's productions in Israel, completed productions to show as a showreel, and we went from one production house to the other, including ABC and various established production house of the time, but we failed to gain any job, mainly lack of language. Our language was very, very limited, in spite of the fact that people were very nice to us and welcoming as migrants, but without command of language, nobody wanted to employ us. As a result, we decided to open our own company. We then went to what was called at the time the Australian Film Unit, Commonwealth Film Unit, today Film Australia, and were able to convince that our knowledge in animation is what they need, and really they didn't have any other production house offering what we were able at the time. And we got the first order, and that was a training short films for traffic control. And in a hurry, we had to assemble the equipment that just arrived from overseas in bits and pieces, establish in our rented home in the bedroom the huge piece of equipment, which was the camera, as well as editing tables and lights and little office in the corner, almost in the wardrobe. And we were successful in doing those short films. At the time, I was the one that drew the animation with rather limited knowledge, because it was only shortly after we got married, shortly after I completed my art school training.
Having started a business as an animation studio and having a very small but important first commission, first job, how did you then build that into a business from there?
Well, once we had that first job, then of course it was necessary to write an invoice. And that was the first step for a business. To write an invoice, our language wasn't good enough, and my ability to do accounts was zero. So we began to search for an accountant. And asking friends, we were recommended to a large firm of accountant. And although it was very frightening because the fees were very high, we felt that that would be the right way to go. If we are in a new country, in a new formed business, we then already realized that we must have the right support around us. Then it was a question of writing letters. We then inquire in the neighborhood a girl that was ready to come for an hour a week, and afterwards it was an hour a day, and afterwards it was half a job and full-time job, and it was really an answer to necessity rather than to a clear planning. And that is okay in terms of business. It is not every person can sit at the table and devise a plan to create a business that needs X amount of animators, X amount of technicians and so on ahead. In our case, our business and production house grew step by step, very slowly, over 40 years, starting from 2 people and ended with 75. And that was, for us, a very healthy, slow growth. We answered our requirements of the time.
How did you plan, or how did you control and manage that growth? Because even though at the beginning you didn't, I gather, plan to set up a huge studio, it was still, you were being pushed by the needs of survival to keep getting more and more work.
Correct. It is more the needs to survive and the fear that if we will not do the right thing, we will not have enough money to pay salaries, and if not enough cash to pay those salaries beyond mortgaging the house, which we did for many years, then you don't have the team that you are slowly building up. So to manage such group, I must admit I don't have any training, not in management, not in business. Yoram was finished film school and was excellent filmmaker and producer and director. But to manage a business was entirely driven by a fear of failure. And to do it well, it was only a question of getting the right people at the right time. And of course one makes mistakes, and one sometimes have to change a lawyer or accountant, but it took us about 10 years to build the key consultants as a permanent advisors to us. And I did not make one step without having both our chief accountant and lawyer, each from his own perspective, advising us on the business step we were about to make, or we have done, or imposed on us. And this is what I recommend each and every professional person who gets into production. Filmmaking is an art for the artists, but if you want to keep a business, meaning if you want your films to be also sold so that you can make the second and third one, then you have to treat it as a business. And if you yourself can't do it, get the support. If you are a director, get a partner who is ready to do the business side of filmmaking.